Hey guys, it's Wills. I'm back. Day 4. Um, we've looked. We're going through the Chosen interactive Bible study. Um, we're at the very beginning. We haven't even got to chapter 1 yet. We're going. We're in this Meet the Mains section. So we've looked at Mary Magdalene, Nicodemus, and Matthew. And I wanted to start and go back on some of the things we talked about last time, or I talked about last time. Specifically, I've got this passage pulled up when Jesus calls Levi or Matthew. He went out again beside the sea, and all the crowd was coming to him, and he was teaching them. And as he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax booth, and he said to him, "Follow me." And he rose and followed him. And last time I was going through how, to me, that's mind-blowing that Jesus can speak 2 words to this guy who's at work, and he just drops everything, like quits his job, and just follows Jesus, from then on. And I was saying how, like, my whole life, I never understood that. Every time he calls these disciples, he just says, "Follow me," and they just drop everything and follow him. And to me, that never really made sense. And that's kind of the point I was making last time. But as I thought about this more, the past day or so, and prayed about it some. I think last time I said, maybe I'll never know until I get to heaven one day and can ask him. But as I was thinking about this more and more, the thing I kind of overlooked and have always overlooked is that this is God speaking. This is Jesus speaking, and like, he spoke the entire world into existence. Like, so it does make sense. He could walk by to a tree or to a mountain and said, "Follow me," and it would have just uprooted and followed him just the same as Matthew or as Peter or as any of these guys. And so I just wanted to make that point and not leave last video kind of open-ended, where it was more of an unknown. And I think I don't know if that's the whole gist of it, but to me, I had kind of that revelation, and so I wanted to share that with you guys as well. But today we're learning, or we're getting into Simon Peter, who's the main character of the show The Chosen. Not the main character, Jesus is the main character, but Simon is the main side character in the show. And so, like I've done in the past, I'm just going to read through this little excerpt that it has about Simon Peter. It'll have verses mentioned throughout, and we're just going to pause there, read the verses, look up the verses. If I have questions from there, or if you have questions in the chat, let me know. And like, I've got Google open. Like, we're just gonna study it like I would be studying anything in college, or in high school or whatever. Like, we're just gonna try and figure out as much as we can and understand as much as we can as we go through this. So let's go. 1 second, I'm gonna get a drink. And I'm not a good public speaker, so I'm like feeling like I need to talk 24/7, and then I end up getting myself out of breath and have to take weird pauses and stuff. But Okay, so Simon Peter. It has a quote first from Matthew 4:18. Let's flip back. I trust their quotes, but I always like to double check them myself. I'm a little bit of a skeptic in that sense, but okay, Matthew 4:18. While walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And that's the quote. And then if you read ahead, it's the follow me line again. But from this book, it says, we know that Simon Peter lived in Capernaum, reference Mark 1:21 through 29, where he was a fisherman with his brother Andrew, Matthew 4:18, Mark 1:6. So this is Matthew 18. Him and his brother Andrew are fishermen. And a lot, like, if you're not familiar with the Gospels, and I'm not overly familiar with the Gospels, but especially, these first four books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, have a lot of repetitive stuff because they're each giving their own account of what happened during Jesus' life. So they have a lot of the same stories, obviously, because that's how it went down. So Mark 1, '21 through 29. And when it gives me these, I like to back up a little bit to make sure I've got the context of what's going on here. So 21, we'll go up here. Jesus calls his first disciples. Passing alongside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, the brother of Simon, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. See, there's like a repetitive thing from what we read in Matthew. And Jesus said to them, follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men. Immediately they left their nets and followed him. And going on a little farther, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, who were in their boat mending the nets. And immediately he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired servants and followed him. And so 21, here's the verse that's referenced about Peter and Andrew being from Capernaum. And they went into Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath he entered the synagogue and was teaching. That's Jesus. And they were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one who had authority, and not as the scribes. And immediately there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, what have you done? What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. But Jesus rebuked him, saying, be silent and come out of him. And the unclean spirit, convulsing him, crying out with a loud voice, came out of him. And they were all amazed, so that they questioned among themselves, saying, what is this, a new teaching with authority? He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him. See, and this is kind of more of like what I was going on at the beginning about being confused about how these people would just follow Jesus and drop everything when he says, follow me. But it's the words of God. So, like, did these guys have a choice? That's the true question, is like, it wasn't like he was walking down the street and saying, follow me to everybody. And then these 12 disciples are the ones that said yes. Like, he picked these guys out and said, hey, Matthew, follow me. Simon, follow me. And so that's just a quirk or a thought for me of like, I had been thinking of this, one way my whole life, and now it's kind of all changed. But yeah, okay. And at once his fame spread everywhere throughout all the surrounding region of Galilee. And immediately he left the synagogue and entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law lay ill with a fever, and immediately they told him about her. And he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and the fever left, and she began to serve them. Okay. And the other interesting note, I just want to point this out too. Growing up, you hear the stories if you're in church of, he here's the story of him calling Matthew, and here's the story of him calling Peter and Andrew, and then here's the story of him, calling James and John to follow him. But like all of this is in one small little town. Like all these people knew each other to a degree, you would think. And their stories kind of like intertwine, and you never really, or at least I never really pictured it that way. I always saw, individual little stories as he's traveling down the road. He stops and sees this guy, and then he travels some more, stops and sees this guy. But really they were, a lot of them are all around this same little area. And the other note about Simon that it mentions in here is that he was married. I think he's the only disciple or apostle that was married. And it references a couple scriptures, Matthew 8:14, so we'll look at that one. Faith of the centurion, okay. 8:14. Oh yeah, it's basically what we just read. And Jesus entered Peter's house and saw his mother-in-law, implying that he's married, lying sick with a fever. Mark 1:30 and Luke 4:38. Let's look at Luke 4:38 because I like Luke's descriptions in a lot of these. He arose and left the synagogue and entered Simon's house. Now Simon's mother-in-law lay ill with a fever, and they appealed to him on her behalf. He stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. Okay. It goes on to say Simon is described in the New Testament as being overly confident, who seemed to think that he could earn his worth, and who sometimes spoke with little forethought. Which I really like Simon Peter, because I see a lot of similarities between myself and Peter. A lot of times most of my life I felt like I know that salvation is not something that you earn, but I felt like I still needed to earn it, or I was still trying to earn it, even though I knew it wasn't. That's not how it works. I've always been a confident guy, so a lot of times I'm labeled as cocky or overconfident or whatever, but so I see a lot of similarities between myself and Peter. So that's why I've started to like this show so much, because he's kind of the main storyline besides Jesus. And it's great to see, it may or may not have happened the way that it is in the show, but for me it's great because I see myself in this character, and see how Jesus is changing him in the show and in the Bible, obviously. and in my life as well. So, I really like Simon Peter. Okay, guys, that's the end of part 1 of Meet the Character Simon Peter. As we go through the Chosen interactive Bible study, we'll be back again for part 2 shortly, so just be on the lookout for that one. Thanks for watching.